I'm Chelsea Tornetto with At Home Author, and today we're going to talk about the importance of pagination when you're self-publishing a children's book. Before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for lots of great content about publishing for children. Pagination is the process of breaking up your picture book manuscript into the actual number of pages that will be in the physical book. Now, before we go any further, as with many things in publishing, this is going to be a little bit different depending on if you're self-publishing or if you're pursuing traditional publishing. If you are going to try traditional publishing, you don't have to paginate your manuscript. I have had some agents prefer it. I've had other agents that say don't worry about it. It really is kind of a personal preference. So if you're going to send your manuscript to agents and editors in the traditional world, don't stress out too much about this, although it is a great tool for kind of self-assessing your manuscript, but it's not something that has to be done. If you're self-publishing, on the other hand, this is a must-do. It's actually the first step kind of leading up to storyboarding your picture book for the illustrator. So self-publishers, this is going to be super important for you. First, you want to think about how the words are going to fit on the page. If you have something in mind that's a very large illustration that's going to take up a lot of the page, then you may not have room for a large block of text as well. You also want to keep in mind your total number of pages. Now, traditional publishers typically have picture books running around 32 pages. As a self-publisher, you can vary from that, but you don't want to go too long or you're going to lose your reader's interest. So just sort of keep that in mind as you're dividing up those pages. A third thing to consider is the type of illustration that you envision for that scene. So think about whether you're going to have a full page illustration, or maybe it's going to be 2 pages, a spread that is one picture that goes across both sides of the page. Or maybe you're envisioning some small spot illustrations that sort of make a series. All of that can impact how many words fit on a page, so keep that in mind. Pacing is super important to keep in mind as you're paginating. For example, if you have a really short paragraph, but it includes a lot of events, maybe it's sort of like a list of this happened, and this happened, and this happened. That may all easily fit on a single page in terms of text, but if you were to put that all on one page, your illustrator would have to fit all of those illustrations into a single space. So you may want to take that small paragraph and actually divide it up over several pages. So pacing can really be important when you're paginating. And the last thing to think about is why I really love paginating picture books, and that is that the simple act of turning a page can actually impact the reader's experience of the story. So for example, maybe you have a big reveal or surprise at some point in your story. By making sure that that comes directly after someone turns the page, you can build up tension to that big reveal. Or maybe there is a part of the story that really doesn't need any words, and a huge illustration only will make a big impact. It's amazing how just placing a page turn at the right moment can improve the reader's experience of the story. So let's talk about how to paginate, because there are a couple different ways that you can do it. The first and simplest way is just to type the page breaks into the manuscript itself, like this. This is actually what I recommend for people who are submitting to traditional publishers and agents, because ultimately the publishing house is going to make the final decision about page breaks anyway. So this is enough for that. It sort of gives you a way to see how the words will flow across each page, where the page turns will happen, but it's pretty simple and doesn't take a lot of work. If you're self-publishing, then I would recommend taking it a step further, because you're going to have to communicate to your illustrator how you want each page to look anyway. So the next step would be to create a dummy book. Now, I have a whole blog post about dummies, so I'll put the link in the description below. But basically, a dummy is just a mock-up of your picture book. It's sort of a practice picture book where you can lay out the words, envision where the illustrations are going to go, decide if you're going to have a spot illustration or a double spread. All of those things can be sort of practiced while you're creating a dummy. If you're more of a digital person, you can use a program like Google Slides or Canva to copy and paste your manuscript onto the slides and sort of divide up your pages that way. So whatever method you choose, there are a few things you need to keep in mind as you're paginating. So next I want to show you some examples of pagination from my own books to kind of show you what I mean. We're going to start off with an example that is sort of practical pagination and how paying attention to things like this can save your Illustrator time. So the first example that I want to share with you is for a self-published project that I did for a local company. They are sort of a stuffed animal care package company called Send a Friend, and I wrote a manuscript that was about sending love across distances that was perfect for them. So we sort of worked together to create a little book to go with their products. So this was the initial pagination that they actually sent to me. And like many people dividing up words onto pages, they basically took the poem, because it was written in rhyme, and divided it up with a set of lines on each page. And so it looked like this. Today I sent you all my love, boxed up in bubble wrap. I wonder how it gets to you on your side of the map. Do mailboxes have secret slides to subway trains below that rumble through the tunnels with their heart-covered cargo? Do elevators lift my love to rooftops way up high, where helicopters wait to take it whizzing through the sky? Do parachutes let my love float and land upon a train that chug-a-lugs its way across the mountains and the plains? And when the railroad tracks run out, does my love take a trip across the rolling ocean waves aboard a cargo ship? And I'll stop there because I won't read you the whole thing, but you get the idea. It kind of just, two lines, two lines, two lines. But if you go back to the beginning and start looking at this closely, I wonder how it gets to you on your side of the map. Do mailboxes have secret slides to subway trains below that rumble through the tunnels with their heart-covered cargo? So both this, tunnels, and this are the trains, but they're on two separate spreads. So the illustrator, instead of being able to do a scene with trains for both of those together on a single spread, they're divided. The same thing happens here. Do elevators lift? Oop, there's a typo there. Should be lift. Do elevators lift my love to rooftops way up high, where helicopters wait to take it whizzing through the sky? So those are sort of connected. Now they show two different forms of transportation, but the elevator is lifting it to the rooftop, which is gonna be part of this scene with the helicopter. And it continues. Each of these is divided. So this is, do parachutes let my love float and land upon a train that chug-a-lugs its way across the mountains and the plains? Obviously, both of these, this and this, are going to show the same train. So why not put them on the same spread so that the illustrator has at least the potential to combine those into a bigger, more impactful illustration? So this version paginates it in a way that makes the illustrations go together more logically. So in this case, we moved 4 lines to the front page. So today I sent you all my love, boxed up in bubble wrap. I wonder how it gets to you on your side of the map. Do mailboxes have secret slides to subway trains below that rumble through the tunnels with their heart-covered cargo? So now these subway trains are combined on a single spread. If the illustrator wanted to make this into a large spread of one train, they could do that. They go together logically. Next page is the same way. Do elevators lift my love to rooftops way up high, where helicopters wait to take it whizzing through the sky? And this one in particular made a big impact. Do parachutes let my love float and land upon a train that chug-a-lugs its way across the mountains and the plains? And you can even kind of tell, I think the punctuation changed in the final version, that this is kind of like one sentence. And so it just makes sense that it should go together on a single spread. So I'll show you sort of how this came out. This was the finished product. Remember, it's being added into little gift baskets with stuffed animals. So this was the cover, and they've got all their branding on there. And there were some slight changes in editing, so there might be something a little different. But today I sent you all my love, boxed up with tissue wrap. I wonder how it gets to you on your side of the map. Do mailboxes have secret slides to subway trains below that rumble through the tunnels with their most precious cargo? So anyway, you can tell the train, it's not exactly a double spread, but we've got a train in both sides so that the topic is consistent across the spread. Here's the elevator lifting up, and you see the same bear coming out here to the helicopter. And this one is where I was really glad that we made the changes that we made, because again, it allowed the illustrator to create a double spread. Do parachutes let my love float and land upon a train that chug-a-lugs its way across the mountains and the plains? And so it's got that sort of panoramic feel to it, and that is all because of the way it was paginated. Okay, so a second example that I want to show you is a little less about practicality and a little more about impact on the reader and really adding something to the story. So this is my traditionally published picture book called Gardens Are for Growing. And even though it was traditionally published and they did have an editor who was really in charge of this, she and I talked together and sort of did this as a team. So I got to kind of see this develop. So the way we had originally paginated it was sort of to, again, and when you have a poem with lines and verses, it makes sense to sort of use math and just sort of divide it up one line per page and see how that goes. So that's how we started. So we had the front cover page, and then shovels are for turning soil, and clumps were meant for breaking. String is meant to keep rows straight, and breaks are meant for taking. Sunshine is for soaking up, and seeds are meant for sowing. And we put those together because of a certain illustration we had in mind. Raindrops give small sprouts a drink, and gardens are for growing. And my manuscript continues with rhyming verses that each represent different stages of childhood and gardens. So I really liked that. I thought that the division was great. I could envision the illustrations, but right at the end of the process, it occurred to me that this repeated refrain, which is repeated several times throughout the story, could really make an impact if each time were a huge double spread showing the whole garden, and if that changed over time, so that the first spread it looked like seedlings, the next spread everything was a little bit greener, and it sort of filled in. So we talked about that, and we decided that it was worth it to sort of squish some of the other lines together on pages in order to leave room for that repeated refrain to have its own 2-page spread every single time. So we changed it to this. Shovels are for turning soil, and clumps were meant for breaking. So we combined that. String is meant to keep rows straight, and breaks are meant for taking. Sunshine is for soaking up, and seeds are meant for sowing. Raindrops give small sprouts a drink, and gardens are for growing. And we left that so that it would cover really 2 pages. And we did that throughout so that every time this line appeared, it got its own spread. And here's why I love that decision and how pagination made a big impact on my manuscript. So this is the book, and here's how that first part looks. Shovels are for turning soil, and clumps are meant for breaking. String is meant to keep rows straight, and breaks are meant for taking. Sunshine is for soaking up, and seeds are meant for sowing. Raindrops give small sprouts a drink, and gardens are for growing. Now I'm going to continue here so that you can see how this impacted future spreads. Okay, so you haven't seen this part yet, but I'm going to show you a little bit more. So keep this picture in mind. Blue jeans are for grass-stained knees, and flowers are for picking. Fresh pea pods are meant to snap, and scarecrows are for tricking. Worms are there for wiggle holes, but dirt is not for throwing. Hoses are for cooling off, and gardens are for growing. So I just love how that one small decision about pagination led to this progression from this to this with the same fence and the same family, but seeing that progress. And so then it also goes to this. You can see the girl's growing a little bit older, to this with her leaving. And so I just love that consistency of that repeated refrain and deciding to give it its own spread really impacted the story. Pagination is not only a practical step in the publishing process for self-publishing authors, it's also a great way to find ways to improve and strengthen your story. So take that manuscript, make yourself a dummy book, and start turning those pages.